Ain't no way, ain't no how. I'ma let somebody come shut me down. Hold my own, I'ma stand my ground. I'ma rep my city and salute my town. Said ain't no way, ain't no how. I'ma let somebody come and shut me down. I'ma hold my own, I'ma stand my ground. And I'm ready for whatever, and I still stand proud. Ain't no way. Who you think you kidding, dude? Never thought that I would do.
What up, though? It is your boy Mike D, host of Wrestling from the 313. We are back on Tuesdays. Last episode we was on Saturday. If you get a chance to check out that episode with Kayfabe Keaton, cool guy, 13 years old from Northern Ireland, training to be a pro wrestler. So if you get a chance, check that out. But before I introduce my guest, at this episode and every episode is brought to you by WSN, the Wrestling Society Network. If you got Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire Stick, make sure on any of those devices you download the WSN app where you can get all the wrestling content, whether it's wrestling cartoons, wrestling shows, documentaries, stuff from different independent promotions. They got a lot of cool stuff on there. Also go to their website, thewrestlingsociety.com, where you can sign up for a free account and check out more wrestling content on there. Also go to the podcast room where you can check out my podcast and tons of other podcasts from all over the IWC. And also go to the Pantheon page where you can join that for free. But if you want the exclusive stuff, they do have membership options for everyone. So my guest, he's a second generation wrestler, and he is also a war vet. War driven Johnny Faith. What up, though? Welcome to the 313.
Hey, thanks, Mike D. I appreciate you having me on. I really do. It's always good to come on and try to tell my story and talk wrestling.
Definitely. And I appreciate it. And anybody that's watching, if you got any questions, want to give a shout out to Johnny, just leave a comment, and your comment or question will be on the show. So let's get things started off. Johnny, you come from a proud wrestling lineage dating back to the 1970s. When did you first realize you wanted to follow in your grandfather's footsteps and step into the business?
It was a couple days after I'd figured out what pro wrestling actually was. When I was a kid, early 90s, I was flipping through channels looking for something to watch, cartoons, Saturday morning, right? So I came across an episode of like WCW Pro or WCW Worldwide. It aired in the mornings in Charlotte, North Carolina, where I grew up in the early 90s. And, I told my mom about it a few days later, or, whatever. And she was like, we should talk to Grandpa about that. Like, that's something you should talk to my dad, my grandfather, about that. And I was like, all right, cool. So the next time I saw my grandfather, I was like, hey, Grandpa, I found this on TV. It's pro wrestling. And he was like, John, I got something to tell you. He's like, so he went into his bedroom, he pulled out a box, and it had all his wrestling stuff in it. It had like one of his entrance jackets. It had, a bunch of photos, bunch of match flyers, a bunch of like memorabilia things that he had that he kept over the years. And he was like, I used to wrestled for about 9 years or so. I was probably, I want to say 7 or 8 years old at the time. So this was like the early 90s. I want to say like 91, 92. Okay. And from there, I just started watching wrestling. Like we had just, the wrestling thing, it kicked off from there. And once I realized that it was in my family and Grandpa did it, boom, that was it.
That's what's up. So for the people that's watching, just let them know who your grandfather was.
So he wrestled under a couple names. He wrestled at the beginning of his career. He was in a tag team with the Hines brothers. He tagged with a guy named Billy Hines down in Georgia, throughout Georgia and South Carolina and North Carolina. They were called the Hines brothers. They wrestled for the NWA tag titles a few times in Georgia Championship Wrestling and throughout the North and South Carolina area as well. And then he went on a singles run and became Jimmy Faith. And, that's where Faith's name came from, obviously, Grandpa's heritage. So I'm trying to carry that on. And, he wrestled a lot. He was more of a, he was an enhancement guy, and nothing wrong with that at all. He was there, he did it, and for me, it inspired me to be a wrestler because it's in the family. And why would you not want to do something that somebody did that you look up to?
That's what's up, definitely. So like when you told like your mom and dad that you wanted to be a wrestler, how did they feel about it?
They enjoyed. They were pretty good about it. Mom grew up, like I said, she grew up. She went to shows with Grandpa and remembers watching Grandpa wrestle. So she was young. She was probably just probably no older than 10 years old or so when she would watch Grandpa wrestle. But she said she remembered it, and she remembers watching wrestling all the time. Grandpa watched wrestling a lot. And so it was kind of like a thing in the household, with my grandfather. It was wrestling in the military, with him.
Yeah, that's what's up. And it seemed like back in that time, it seemed like wrestling, and I still think it's a family thing now, but it definitely it seemed like it was more of a family thing, like in the 70s, maybe even in the 60s, like when wrestling was coming up, because you hear a lot of people say that when they talk about their stories when they were kids, like the family would all sit around and watch wrestling. And it always seemed like the grandparents were always into it more than and this I've even heard people say like their grandmothers were even into it. So it's it's cool. Like wrestling brings families together, bring people together. And I think that's one of the dope things.
Yeah, it definitely brought my family together. I mean, we were together before, but once I found wrestling, me, my grandpa, and my uncle, we would, throughout my entire childhood, from then on, we'd watch pay-per-views together. We have little wrestling parties and things like that. And it was a good thing that we bonded over. It was a good moment. It was a good thing for us to bond over throughout my childhood.
That's what's up. So growing up, getting into wrestling, I know your grandfather was one of your favorites. Who else were some of your favorites growing up when you were watching wrestling?
So obviously the Attitude Era, I started watching wrestling in the early '90s, and so I'd watch through the cartoonish WWF era, with all the weird gimmicks that they had. Yeah, with all the weird gimmicks, Duke the Dumpster, the booger guy, they had all those over the top gimmicks, which was good, and I still watched it because, to me that was cool, man. Those guys were really big. They were, to me, I thought that was watching an Olympic sport. It was, watching two big guys just go at it, and then the Attitude Era kicked off. And that's when I really started watching better wrestling because, in the '90s, the world was evolving. You could tell the way the times were evolving from the '80s into the '90s, wrestling evolved with it. And it became the Attitude Era. And it wasn't just WCW or WWF that did it. WCW was going edgier too. You had ECW. And you had a lot of indie companies too on the indie scene doing it as well.
Yeah.
And, that's when Stone Cold, The Rock came out, and for me, those guys were larger than life guys. Stone Cold was somebody that I, worshiped growing up as a kid. I watched him all the way from when he was stunning Steve Austin in WCW in the early '90s.
Yeah.
And he evolved, got rid of the hair, got the earring, bald head, anti-authority gimmick, and it was I was sold, and same with The Rock, watching him evolve, WCW, I love Sting. He was a great, even though he didn't really, they did that 1.5 year storyline with him in the mid '90s, and he didn't really wrestle much, but his character when he became the Crow was really good.
Definitely.
So Sting, Hogan, The Rock, Stone Cold, those were some of the big guys I watched throughout the early years of my wrestling.
That's what's up. Yeah, I started watching wrestling in the '80s. I'm an '80s baby, so yeah, I remember just getting up on Saturday mornings, watching cartoons all morning. Then 11, 12 o'clock, WWF coming on. Then I remember watching Saturday night's main event from back in the day. I think I remember at a time. I remember when my parents had first got cable, and then I started watching WCW. And then I started watching WCW, and then, like you said, WWE was going through that time where they was having all the cartoon characters and gimmicks and stuff. And I'm like, man, I'm tired of watching this. I'm about to watch WCW. And that's how I got exposed to Sting, Lex Luger, Ric Flair. When I started watching WCW, that's when I started realizing, okay, guys that left WWF are going here, and guys that from WCW, it was vice versa. So it was like, then I started understanding, like, okay, now I'm starting to get this wrestling thing. But yeah, once I got exposed to WCW, I'm like, yeah, I like these guys. And
Yeah,
then, like
see,
I said, the Attitude Era came along. I would say Jerry Springer and the rise of gangster rap is what made WCW and WWF change their style and change their image. Because a lot of the stuff that the NWO was doing, they was getting a lot of their stuff from Tupac and like Death Row Records. And a lot of the stuff that WWF was doing, you know, they saw what Jerry Springer was doing. So, you know, they was doing the same thing, brawn panties and
yeah, it was over the
you know
top.
what I'm saying? So they had to adapt to what was going on or whatever. But I think that was like the best time in wrestling. Like, I think that would be the final time where we see where wrestling shows are getting like 4 million, like big ratings. You know what I'm saying? I don't think we're going to see that anymore. Not, I know a lot of people like to say because of streaming and stuff like that. But I think just right now, people are just not interested in the storylines. And you still going to have that fan base that's going to watch. But to me, and I think you would probably agree too, to me, like wrestling is kind of like not must-see TV like how the Attitude Era was.
Yeah, it's a lot different now, and it's because the world changed. It's like we talked about,
That's true.
throughout the early '90s and all the way even to the early 2000s, I guess that whole like 10 or 12 year period was a
Yeah,
lot different. The country was at war, like it was, there's a lot of stuff going on, but now everything's kind of slowed down. So everybody's COVID happened, so COVID really threw a wrench in a lot of stuff and changed a
yeah,
lot of things.
I agree.
So I mean that could be also, I'd say COVID was a factor too in the current wrestling product, honestly.
Yeah, definitely. Because real quick, I'm not sure if you catch up on watched NXT in the past. WWE's Developmental League.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. They were actually supposed to like during COVID, they were really, really gonna like build them up as like a third brand. Like they were gonna start going on the road, more. And once COVID hit, it hurt a lot of people because I think one of my favorite factions in NXT at that time, the Undisputed Era, I
Yeah.
think they were talking about calling them up. And, you know, like you said, COVID put a wrench on a lot of things and it never happened. So, yeah, it's kind of interesting to see what wrestling would have been like if it wasn't for COVID.
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, not even just wrestling, just the world period. Because COVID changed a lot of things. And obviously wrestling too. But it changed a lot of things just about us as humans. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Real quick, we got a comment from Billy Simmons. Shout out to him. He said, Venice Beach thing was the best thing.
Yeah. See, that's my trainer right there. My first trainer out there in Kansas. He's a big Vader fan too. Surprised he didn't say anything about Vader.
Hey, Vader was nice too. I would have to say Vader was probably one of the most athletic big men in wrestling. Like the dude could do a moonsault off the top rope. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
he was definitely a force back in the day in WCW. And then I love how he used to have the helmet with the horns and the smoke used to come out of it. And Harley Race was his manager. I would say that they was probably the first Paul Heyman and Brock Lesnar before there was Paul Heyman and Brock Lesnar. I would say that about Harley Race and Vader.
I liked Vader. He was a huge guy, and if you ever saw him in person, you really wouldn't understand how big he actually was. And I mean, being a little kid, when the first time I saw him, I was just like, wow, this dude like couldn't even walk through my front door. He'd have to walk sideways.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
That's how I felt. Like, I really did, and Grandpa always said good things about him. He was always a nice guy. I mean, he was really stiff in the ring, and everyone knows that, but I mean, that's just how he was. I mean, he learned over in New Japan. He learned it, he got his kicks off in Japan wrestling with those guys. So of course he was going to be a hard hitter when he got here.
Oh yeah, definitely. So, before wrestling, you served as a combat engineer in the Army. How did your military experience shape your mindset and approach inside the ring?
So, I really thought, I was going to be able to transition from wrestling or from the military to wrestling, because how, it's pretty physically enduring career to have, being in the military. It really is, especially my job. I was pretty much on my feet all the time carrying gear and all that. So, I mean, I thought I was in good shape, and I show up to the tryout, and man, I get smoked. I get smoked. And, they talk about, you don't know what it's like until you experience it. And that's the truth, because, my whole life, I always wanted to know what it was like to take a bump in the ring. Always wanted, never had the opportunity, wound up doing the military thing. So I had to put all the dreams on hold for that. And, finally, when I got a chance to do a tryout, I took that first bump. You don't know until you feel it, and until you go through, running the ropes and all that, I didn't realize how not in shape I was for wrestling. I was in great shape for the military and combat and all that. But as far as wrestling goes, I was not prepared for that. So I think getting back in that physical mindset, I needed to dive back into my military roots and, dig deep for that. And it was good though. I realized that I needed to work more on in-ring cardio and all that. So I took a lot of what I learned in the military in terms of physical fitness and applied it to getting in better shape for wrestling.
That's what's up. And you know what? I think every athlete that gets into wrestling, I think they say the same thing, that the training is like totally different. Because not to say that, a show like Tough Enough, there are real elements to it, but it's also it's also TV. But the training that they show on there, like, I know that when you take a bump, you keep taking multiple bumps. You know what I'm saying? And then I see that they show people that's training going back and forth to the ropes. And sometimes, like, after so many times, like, they were so winded. And it's also, if I'm correct, it's a certain way that you got to hit the ropes when you're going back and forth, because you could get like rope burn, if I'm correct.
There's a few ways that it's taught. You're going to get rope burn no matter what, honestly. But there's a few different ways to hit the ropes to keep yourself safe. So in case of the rope breaks, you can catch yourself. But as far as rope burn goes, it's going to happen no matter what, really.
Got you. I think I would like to. If I ever get like on or able to do something for a wrestling show, I think definitely being like a special guest announcer or something like that. But I would never want to get involved in a match. Like, I respect what wrestlers do too much. I do not want to get dropped on my head and yes, I know they train professionals and stuff, but still, like, nah. I would like to take a bump though, but I think that's as far as physicality that I would want to go, as far as like being in the ring.
Yeah.
So what did that first day after practice? What did that first day feel like? Were you sore for a couple of days?
Yeah, and I think we were doing 3 days a week that when I first started. It was like Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday. So by the time I got to Sunday, it was Sunday afternoons too. So it wasn't like it was, Sunday night or Sunday morning. So it was Sunday afternoons. By the time I got to Sunday, I was like, oh man, I'm only, 2 or 3 days in. And I was like, I got to train and the other trainees that, started out with me when I started training, we all were just like, you know what, we're here for the next, however long it takes to get us graduated. Let's dig deep and let's cheer each other on and let's keep pushing. Cause we were hurting. We really were. Like, I'm telling you, like it's an experience that you have to experience. really explain it, and you can't really prepare for it.
Definitely. That's what's up. So your nickname is War Driven. What does the name represent to you personally and professionally?
So personally, that means that it doesn't matter what kind of war it is. It doesn't necessarily have to be a match. It can be the war with, my inner self, my PTSD, my, just whenever you get to that point in your life and you feel like that you can't go anymore, I push through that. I've been through a lot of things in my life, and a lot of things should have put me on the shelf already, and I should be on the shelf, but miraculously I am not, because I persevere and I push through. And I'm always trying to win the battle with myself. And every day that I win the battle with myself, I always say I win the war. And and winning that war drives me, winning that war against myself, because I'm not proving anything to anybody except myself. If I prove to the world, great. If I prove to my wife, great. My kids, great. But proving to myself first before all that, and if I win that war, then I can drive through anything.
Definitely. Man, that's a motivational. You need to be a motivational speaker, man. No, but for real, like, I think that's cool what you said, because I think a lot of people need that, especially men. Like, we go through a lot, you know what I'm saying? And then sometimes, like, we got to keep that tough interior, but it's like we go through so much just trying to, keep our head above water, protect our families, and provide for our families. And sometimes we just need that motivation and inspiration, and yeah, definitely something you should like look into, like being a motivational speaker for people, because a lot of people need the word, need that advice now, especially with how the world is today, man.
Yeah, definitely. And it's always good to let your guard down sometimes and tell people what you think, and let people know how you feel. Because sometimes it fixes things. Sometimes it doesn't fix things. But you're never gonna know until you let your guard down. And for me, that's like the best thing I could do. It's the best way to win the war, is let my guard down and tell people my story.
Definitely, definitely. So you trained under Billy Simmons at the Bears Den and later graduated from the Jacobs-Prichard Wrestling Academy. What were some of the biggest lessons each trainer taught you?
So Billy Simmons, so I'd been out of the Army for about a year and a half, 2 years, and I found Billy Simmons out in Kansas. I'd retired out of the Army in Kansas in 2015, and I found Billy in his company. And we're talking about mentally, mental stuff there a second ago. It was probably the worst couple of years of my life getting out of the Army. I was lost. I had no purpose. I really was, just down. And I found a local wrestling company, 20 miles away, $5 for a military vet tick. Cool. I was like, I need to get my mind off of things. So I went to a local wrestling show. Fell in love with indie wrestling right there. It had been the first time I'd ever been to an indie wrestling show, believe it or not. And I fell in love with indie wrestling right there, and wound up messaging the page a couple of months later and asking if they needed any help, setting up chairs, setting the ring up. I was trying to get my mind off of things, and I was trying to do what I could. And this was an opportunity. I thought I could maybe push myself into the wrestling business. If I can't wrestle, cool. Maybe I can, at least do sound, or maybe ring announce or commentary or something cool like that. And so the owner messaged me back, Billy Simmons, and was like, hey, I'm going to open up my training facility again and start training wrestlers again. Are you interested? And I was like, of course. Yes, sir. I'll be there. And, he gave me that opportunity, that first opportunity to finally live the dream that I always wanted to do ever since I found out Grandpa wrestled. And I didn't think I was going to be able to because of the Army. And here I am with this golden opportunity. And, I told Billy, halfway through our training, I really hit rock bottom, and I was really about to walk away, because mentally I just couldn't. I was in a mental bad spot. My PTSD was really bad. And Billy pulled me to the side one day at training and was like, you know what? The outside world does not matter. What matters is what's in between those ropes. He's like, why don't we get in there, and why don't we just let what happened happen, and everything outside those doors does not matter. And that's how I've treated wrestling every single day of my life since then. I have treated it as a way to escape the outside world and what is bringing me down, if that makes sense.
Got you. Yeah, and then it's cool. Like I think everybody needs an outlet when they going through something to kind of just get away from the world. You know what I'm saying? And like you said, you use wrestling, and like I said, like it's a lot of mental stuff that's going on, and people really need to find that outlet. And I think that if they can find that outlet or something that can get them away from what's, bothering them, I think that will help them a little bit, depending on the person. It will help them with coping with things better. And it seemed like wrestling helped you.
Definitely, and at least helps them get their mind off of it for a little while. It's something you got to think about. I don't know how I'm gonna pay the water bill this month, honestly, but my buddy's got a free ticket to a wrestling show, so why don't I go not worry about it for 2 hours? Just something to not worry about for a little while. Like that's why I love wrestling. You talk about it brings families together. It does that, and it helps people escape. Their everyday life. You never know what that guy's going through in the front row or in the second row, but if you throw him your bracelet, you could have made his week. You never know.
Definitely.
And then Dr. Tom Prichard, he taught me to be authentic. Be the most authentic version of yourself as possible. And that's what war-driven Johnny Faith is. That's what the war-driven moniker is. It's the most authentic version of myself, because that war that I win every day pushes me and drives me through everything. So, I'm blessed to have been able to be trained by those two guys, because, I learned so much from both of them. And I don't know if you know who Dr. Tom Prichard is or heard of him, but he has trained so many famous people, and his school was one of a kind, and something I'll never forget.
Because if I'm correct, I know Dr. Tom Prichard, he used to be in Smoky Mountain Wrestling. He was in a tag team, right? I'm trying to think of the name, because they were in WWF. Was it the Heavenly Bodies? I don't know why that name. Okay, got it. Because it was Tom Prichard, and I can't think of the other guy's name. And Tom Prichard that's Bruce Prichard's brother, right?
Yep.
Got you. Yeah.
Yep. And he was head of WWE's developmental territories for a while, and all that. And right now I think he's an agent for NWA. I think he's still an agent for NWA right now. He goes to all their shows and he agents for them.
That's what's up. And I think it's cool how the name NWA is still around. Like, it's not one of those promotions like WWE or TNA or AEW, but it's still around and people still enjoy it. They have a crowd that they market to. It's kind of like that old school indie type of crowd that they market to. But I would love to see them get like a major TV deal someday. I know that they got something on, if I'm correct, Roku Sports.
Yeah, they got NWA Power.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna have to check them out, because like WWE, AEW, TNA, all those promotions are cool. But I hear a lot about NWA, and a lot of those guys are from NWA are going to WWE and AEW. So yeah, it's a lot of history with NWA, and it's cool that they still around.
Oh yeah. And even when I was up at JPWA in Tennessee, I got to go to a couple of those NWA territory companies, and just to be around those guys was awesome, and that opportunity was an experience in itself.
That's what's up. So you debuted in 2019 as a second generation wrestler. How has the journey been so far, and what moments stand out the most?
Journey's been really good. I got an obviously late start in wrestling. I didn't start wrestling until the early 30s, my early to mid 30s, I think. And I really, I've met so many good people, and just people that just want to enjoy wrestling for what it is. and people just want to have fun. And I met so many people that inspire me too. And, people coming up to me saying I inspire them. So that's great. And, I'm hoping I can keep doing this a little bit longer, and I enjoy, all the opportunities that I get and everywhere I go.
Definitely. Hey, you know what? Don't even worry about the age and being the late starter, because Diamond Dallas Page started in his mid-30s, and look what happened. He's a Hall of Famer. You know what I'm saying? If I'm correct, Goldberg did the same thing. You know what I'm saying? Look at them. He ended up being one of the top stars of all time. So hey, don't let the age, don't worry about that. You win there, just keep doing what you're doing, and it's all gonna pan out.
Definitely, because I know I can. I mean, I've proved to myself that I can do it. So I'm just going to keep going until I can.
That's what's up. So you temporarily moved to Tennessee early this year to train under Dr. Tom Prichard. What was that experience like, and how did it elevate your abilities?
That experience was, I'm honestly, I'm still going through all the notes and everything. He recorded all the practices for us. So we got a copy of all the practices. So I get to go back and review everything that I learned. It's not like I just, went there, did the 12-week program and left. Like I can go back and look, I got access to those videos, but I took so much notes, and it's like, people keep asking me what it was like. And I'm like, I'm still trying to figure it out. Like I've been home since April, and I'm still trying to digest all that information that I learned in those 3 months up there, because, every day it was like I was trying to soak it in, everything that I could out of Dr. Tom. And, he really beat us to the mat. The way he trains, it's very drill oriented. So if you're not in shape, you will be within like a week or two after being there, because he really puts you through the ringer, no doubt about it. His drills just really drive you to the mat. But that experience, 3 months, I lived with 4 other guys. We shared a house up there. We got like an Airbnb for 3 months, and that was good. It was good to meet some new people. Like we talked about earlier, I got to go to some of those NWA territory shows up there in the Tennessee area. And, I just, every time somebody asks me, I'll say the same thing. I'm still trying to digest the information, because it was just a lot. And I just am so grateful for that opportunity, and thankful that my family, my wife, my kids allowed me to move up there. And I was fortunate enough to be able to move up there for 3 months.
Cool. So you say I know you were just saying that he had some intense drills. Like what was a drill that you had to do where it was just like, oh, like I don't want to have to do this again? Or like what drill do you, in your opinion, that was the hardest?
Well, I think if anybody ever goes through Dr. Tom, or even attends one of his seminars, his Satan drill, it's called a Satan drill. Oh, wow. And it's push-ups, sit-ups, up-downs, running the ropes, it puts you down. Like it's called a Satan drill. And, that drill is pretty hardcore.
That's what's up. So a big part of your mission is honoring veterans past and present every time you compete. What does that mean to you, and how do you carry that responsibility?
Well, I mean, the military runs in my family. So, I always thought when I first started wrestling, what I wanted my message to be. And, my military lineage dates, my family's heritage dates like all the way back to like almost like the American Revolution. It goes that far back. And I am fortunate enough to obviously follow in my grandfather's footsteps with wrestling, but, I've also followed in his footsteps in the Army as well. He was in the Army too during Korea and Vietnam. And so we share those same 2 paths. We walked those same 2 paths pretty much. As soon as we both got out of the service, we went pretty much straight to wrestling. But, the honor and the veterans thing, I served with so many people during my career, and, I always call them heroes. I always say on all my posts, I served with heroes, because I did. And, a lot of them aren't here anymore. And, to honor their memories every time I step between the ropes, or, any kind of veteran, because without our country's veterans, we wouldn't be here today. We wouldn't be able to talk about wrestling. We wouldn't be able to watch wrestling. We'd be doing something completely different if we didn't have these people, laying their lives on the line for our freedoms. So to be able to honor their memory and honor their sacrifice every time I put on my tights and step through the rope, that's the message that I've wanted to drive home, for 6 years.
That's what's up. So you being Army a veteran and seeing characters, wrestlers that have like Army or soldier like characters, what's your opinion on that?
I really have no opinion on that. Honestly, I know that there are people out there that are legitimate. I'm just going to say that there are legitimate people out there who really understand what it means to serve. And, if they want to bring that over to the wrestling world, I know there's a lot of military gimmicks like me out there. And, a lot of those guys have served, mostly all of them have served. And there's ones that haven't, and that's okay. I mean, I know Sergeant Slaughter, he didn't serve, but he took that gimmick and ran with it. And, I got no problem with it. As long as it's not disrespectful, I'm cool with it, but as long as you're respectful, I have no problem with it, whether you served or whether you didn't serve. But, nowadays, to me, a lot of people ask me that sometimes, how do the military gimmicks affect you? And they really don't, because, we need people like that. We need people to remind, this country that this country is great. And there are a lot of heroes in this country, and, not just veterans, they, some of those military gimmicks speak to the blue collar guys. You're from Detroit, the blue collar. So, I mean, so, I mean, it's whatever to me, man. Whatever you want to do to have fun, just have fun and be respectful. That's all I care about.
Yeah, definitely. Hey, there were a lot of people, for the people that's watching, and like you mentioned, Sergeant Slaughter. A lot of people don't know how big that Sergeant Slaughter character was. Like,
yeah,
he was probably like the second biggest heel in wrestling around that time, like second to Hulk Hogan. You know what I'm saying? Like, he was fan favorite in the wrestling ring. He did his thing with the cartoons with G.I. Joe, but and I remember when they used to like push his toy, and that toy was so hard to find. Like, you could not find the Sergeant Slaughter toy nowhere. I remember that. But I also remember when Sergeant Slaughter, during the Gulf War, when he turned heel and was down with Iraq. How did and I know, what I'm saying, you said it, stuff like that don't matter, but how did you feel about that when he did that?
So, and what's crazy is, I always wanted to know what it was like to be a wrestling fan that could remember that, because I think when that happened, I was probably like 5 or 6, and this was before I'd found wrestling, I believe, obviously. And, but there was no internet, so there was no dirt sheets or any of that. So, people thought that was a real thing, like, and it wasn't a work. And, for me to like think about it and going back, because I watched pretty much that whole, I guess, storyline or whatever event, and I went into it with an open mind, no internet, nothing. How, as a wrestling fan, would I feel? And I would have been very mad, like very, very mad, because that war was, we were trying to save Kuwait at the time, and then he became an Iraqi sympathizer, and like it was worst heel of all time. Like, I never thought that would ever happen, because just a couple years earlier he was the baby face, like big baby face, and and then became that Iraqi sympathizer and became like the number one hated heel in history almost.
Yeah, and you know what, that's crazy, because it's like, I remember not too long ago, this was probably like in February, this was around the time when John Cena turned heel, and everybody was talking about, like, his heel turn being the second biggest heel turn after Hulk Hogan when he joined the NWO. I forgot about when Sergeant Slaughter. I think that has to be up there. That definitely has to be up there. That might have to be number 2 because when he did that, that's like you said, all American. You know what I'm saying? He was an American soldier, and then to switch over to Iraq. Yeah, I now that I think about it, that Sergeant Slaughter has to be like number 2, then maybe like John Cena or something like that. But yeah, that was a crazy time for them to even think about doing something like that. That was but that was Vince McMahon. He knew
Yeah,
where
I
to
mean,
go.
it's like that time. Well, it's like, I mean, you talk about doing crazy things like that. It's like when that Muhammad Hassan guy had those terrorists
Yeah,
kidnap the Undertaker. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
like we're right in the middle of Afghanistan and Iraq wars, and there's terrorists on TV kidnapping the Undertaker. Like,
yeah.
you know, and for that, you know, I mean, it's entertainment. You know, so it's like I said, you know, as long as it's respectful, you know, why not?
Yeah, I feel you on that. I definitely feel you on that. So your character and presentation feel very grounded in realism, discipline, and grit. How much of Johnny Faith is the real you versus the performer?
It's all me. It's all me, just with a lot more behind it, if that makes sense. Like you know, I go back to what I talked about with Dr. Tom Prichard, and you know what the big lesson he taught me going through his school was be authentic. And when me and Billy Simmons were trying to figure out for me, I was trying to not go the military route or the soldier route or anything like that. I really wanted to do my own thing and try to take my grandfather's character and try to mold it into my own. But it didn't feel right. It didn't feel like me. And Billy was just like, you know what, Johnny, why don't you just be the most authentic version of yourself? So I said, okay. So I took, you know, the military gimmick. I was the American hero, Johnny Faith, back then. I took that and I pretty much ran with it. And I, you know, haven't looked back.
That's what's up. So how would you compare your wrestling style? Like, would you say that it's technical? Would you say it's power? Would you
I'm getting
say
more technical. So I'm starting to transition into more of a technical side. Before it was more of a brawler, I guess. I was more of a brawler, but now I'm switching more to more of a technician. I would say, you know, the more I'm going to training here, I'm switching more to a technical side than brawler, but I'd still say I'm a little bit of both, I guess, right now.
that's what's up? So you kind of being like somebody like Dean Malenko, man of a thousand holds, and
That's
doing
exactly who I've been watching too. Yeah, I've been watching him a lot. Like I really have.
And you know what? He was one of the best. Like when people talk about WCW cruiserweights, I know everyone say that Ray, Eddie Guerrero, and Jericho were like the top 3. But Dean Malenko, he had that stone cold look coming to the ring, and he was just a technician in the ring. I think him and I would say the Ultimo Dragon are 2 guys that were outside of Ray, Eddie Guerrero, and Chris Jericho. Dean Malenko and Ultimo Dragon were definitely my favorites.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm actually in the middle of watching mid '90s WCW right now. I think I'm up to like 1997, and I'm literally right in the middle of I think it's a Dean Malenko TV title run. So his matches right now are really good that I've been studying.
Yeah, I forgot he was the television champion for a minute. Of course I know he was the cruiserweight champion. I want to say I don't think he won the United States title, but I know the television title for sure. And he was a member of the Horsemen too. And a lot of people don't talk about that. But that was when the Horsemen was just like the Horsemen at that time was kind of like when one of those old groups from back in the day try to get back together and try to have one last run, sort of like the Four Tops, you know what I'm saying? Something like that. Like they might have that one original member that's still alive, but everybody else is new. And that's kind of like what that last Horseman run was.
Yeah, because then you had like Kurt Hennig in there too as a horseman, and you're like, why is Kurt Hennig a 4-horseman?
Yeah, then Steve McMichael was a 4-horseman. Chris Benoit. I think Jeff Jarrett was a member of the Horsemen. Also.
Yeah, he was. I'm in the middle of that little storyline right now where Jeff's part of the 4 horsemen.
Yeah, because that's when Deborah McMichael was his manager.
Yeah.
So what goals do you have for 2025 and beyond? And are there certain promotions, opponents, or championships you got your eyes on?
So the rest of 2025, I'm just looking to. I think I got 4 bookings between now and the end of the year left, and I'm just looking at those opportunities and ready to go wrestle for those companies. Really, I'm trying to expand it. I'm trying to expand into South Carolina. I'm going to get a South Carolina license for 2026 for the first time ever. Since I've lived down here in Georgia, I haven't got a South Carolina license, even though I'm really close to this. I only live probably an hour and a half, 2 hours away from South Carolina. Oh. But I'm going to get a license for South Carolina. So I'm hoping to push into South Carolina and then get back home up into the Charlotte area in 2026, up in North Carolina, definitely for sure. But really, mostly, I'm just ready to take whatever opportunities I'm given and make the most of them.
That's what's up. So right now, so you how many states have you wrestled in so far? You just said Georgia, right?
Yeah. Off the top of my head, I don't know. I want to say like 15 to 20, somewhere in there.
Cool.
15 to 20 states. Yeah. And, this weekend I got a show in Kansas. So I'm leaving Georgia and heading to Kansas for a show.
Sweet. That's what's up.
So I get out. I travel a lot. I kind of travel. I travel a decent amount. Not really a lot, but I do get out.
So real quick, what are some of your favorite promotions that you like to wrestle for when you do shows?
So this Saturday is Billy Simmons, my first trainer, his company, Heartland Championship Wrestling out there in Kansas. That'll always be a go-to company for me. So I'll go out there every month or every other month or so to wrestle for them. Up in my hometown of Charlotte, North Carolina, we got Extreme World Wrestling that I like to visit frequently. My family lives up there. That's where I was born and raised. And my mom still lives there. My sister still lives there, and nieces and nephews. So whenever I get up there to Charlotte to wrestle, it's always good because my family gets to come out and see me. And then down here in Georgia, Passion of Wrestling is the company down here in Georgia as well. So, a little bit everywhere. Might be a little bit everywhere.
That's what's up. So last question for anyone watching who's watching tonight, who's chasing a dream, whether in wrestling or life, what message or advice would you want to leave with them?
Never give up. Like I am the epitome of somebody who should never quit. Like, I mean, I've been through so much. The Army career really took a drag on everything. I don't know if you know this, Mike D, but I also had a heart attack as well a year ago.
Ooh,
so, yeah, I had a heart attack a year ago. So I bounced back from that, obviously, with, 100% full clearance. But to whoever out there that needs to hear it, definitely don't give up, because I am the epitome of why you should not give up. My father, he was a great man, and he taught me never to quit no matter what life throws at you. And, he fought cancer all the way to the very end, and he did not quit. And, that's something I can tell people is don't quit and never, lose hope on your dreams, and never settle for less. Always settle for what makes you happy.
That's what's up. Definitely. Johnny Faith, I appreciate you coming on. Enjoy hearing your story. Definitely have a great story. Good luck with everything, everything with your wrestling career. But before we get up out of here, do you want to give any shout outs and let the people know where they can find you?
Yeah, definitely. You can find me on all major social media outlets: TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, at JohnnyFace704. That's where you can find me. You can find me on YouTube as well at JohnnyFace704. I add matches. I upload matches to YouTube every now and again. But and that's really about it. I really appreciate it, Mike D.
Oh, no problem. No problem. Hey, this is what this platform is for. You know, people that's in the wrestling community, whether you're a wrestler, podcaster, content creator, this is your platform to come here and tell your story or talk wrestling or, you know, the stuff that's going on. That's why we here. And as welcome anytime you want to come back to Wrestling from the 313.
I appreciate it. I really do. I appreciate the opportunity to let me come on and tell my story and talk wrestling.
Definitely, no doubt. Real quick, want to give a shout out to the real dudes at ringside, saying what's up, what up to you guys. Before I get out of here, wanted to let everybody know, Wrestling from the 313, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. We're over 7,000 subscribers. We're getting close to 7,100. So if you haven't, make sure you subscribe, hit that notification button and all that good stuff. Next week, we will not have an episode. It's Thanksgiving week. I'm going to be chilling out. I'm going to be getting ready to get my grub on. And we will be back in 2 weeks with an episode on Tuesday, 8 p.m. And real quick before I get out of here, I had a passing in my family. Uncle passed away this Sunday. My Uncle Dennis, he was a wrestling fan also. So definitely want to dedicate this episode to him and just say rest in peace to him. And I love him and I'm definitely miss him. So for my guests, Johnny Faith, I am Mike D. This is Wrestling from the 313. See you all in 2 weeks. Peace.